Alicia, welcome to the Easy Conversations podcast. Thank you for joining me today and coming on here. And I'm looking forward to learning a bit more about your story. I think we do share a few things in common. And I guess I'll just talk about those. We're both in Calgary, we're both have an engineering background. So I do think that's fascinating and it'll probably lead to a fruitful conversation as well. But before we jump into it, I do want to give you an opportunity to share with the listeners a little bit about yourself and what's brought you here today.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me, first of all. What brought me here today? Like this conversation or like where I am today or
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Where are you today?
Yeah, so I used to have like severe depression for about 5 years. I also had social anxiety like my whole life, but I didn't realize it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, that's like a whole other story of what it took for me to realize it because I always had like groups of friends in threes. So like I didn't realize when I was one on one with someone that I had social anxiety. Yeah, and I tried to heal from depression for a very long time, and I was trying everything to heal that I could find, starting with the conventional method because I didn't know all the stuff I know now, and I didn't know what else to do other than to just go to my doctor. They just put me on medication, but the medication didn't have any effect on me. So life was trying to get me to really heal the root
Mm-hmm.
cause instead of
Mm-hmm.
just like, oh, here's like a pill and just manage it. For
Mm-hmm.
some people, like that might give them some temporary relief, but for me, it gave me absolutely nothing. It was like I was taking nothing. There was no side effects or positive benefits, like absolutely nothing. So I had to keep searching and I kept trying everything conventional, unconventional, and nothing was working. And I just gave up because I thought that nothing worked. And
Mm-hmm.
easy to me how many people actually think that you just can't heal from depression or you just have to manage depression. So many
Yeah.
people think that. And I thought that. And yeah, I didn't heal until I found my buddy medicine. And it happened so synchronistically the way that I found it. And I found my mentor. And I healed pretty much instantly once I found it because there was a difference now. Like I was welcoming what I was feeling instead of resisting it or trying to make the pain go away. Yeah, I just feel like it was always just make my pain go away, make my pain go away. Like I had
Mhm.
no interest in really having compassion for myself or understanding what my body was trying to tell me and truly healing. And it wasn't until I had that interest and like completely surrendered and truly wanted to heal that I
Mhm.
healed pretty much right away. And that's what led
Mhm.
me to what I do now, which is I help people heal from mental
Mhm.
and physical illness using mind body medicine.
Mm. Okay.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate that. So, yeah, so what were you doing before and
Mhm.
what's the transition you made just so we can get that context? And then I have some questions around the depression also. But yeah, help us understand what you were you doing before and what's led you here now in terms of what the work you're doing now.
Yeah, so I'm a chemical engineer, so I used to work as one. I worked at TransCanada for 6
Mm.
years, and I don't even think I was self-aware enough to realize that wasn't what I was meant to do. Like, I was
Mhm.
just not dropped into my body. I remember when I first started working there on my internship, like, my friends would ask me, "Could you."
Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. My friends would ask me, like, "Could you see yourself doing this forever?" And I was like, "Yeah." Like, I don't know, I just didn't think I had anything I was good at or meant to do or was passionate about, and I enjoyed studying it, but I wasn't aware that I didn't enjoy working as an engineer. Like, it just wasn't something I was passionate about, and also in the corporate world, there is no room for sensitivity. I just feel like it's considered inappropriate. There's, like, corporate politics and things like that, and I'm just such a sensitive person that, like, I can have awareness on things that other people don't have awareness on. They could if they were super sensitive. I will know if we put our energy into this, it's not gonna create something. So let's
Mhm.
not even work on this. But I can't say that in the corporate world, "Hey, I'm getting this gut feeling that we shouldn't work on this." They're gonna be like, "No, this is your job, just do it." And there you just can't, like, cry in the office. It's considered inappropriate. But I was such a sensitive person, and I feel like I had to suppress all of my unique gifts, which is my sensitivity, in order to survive in the corporate world. So it was something that was just never meant for me. But how I actually made the transition, it really just happened for me. Like my mentor asked me to speak on her podcast, just like this, where I
Yeah.
shared my story. And then her community wanted to work with me because they wanted to know what was it about the way I used mind body medicine that I healed right away. Because it is a lot about you could have the perfect resource right in front of you, but if you're using it in certain ways, like your body can tell the difference between unconditional love and conditional love, and you can't fool your body. So I just shared specifically what I did and how I healed. And then her community
Mhm.
started asking to work with me. And then
Mm.
so I did it through her business for a while, like 4 or 5 years or something like that. Like, she said
Mhm.
I didn't have to do anything. Just
Yeah.
come work my business, mentor my community. It just happened for me. The transition was so smooth. Between a week of me leaving TransCanada, this
Mhm.
got created for me. It just happened because it was divine timing, I feel like something I was meant to do.
Yeah, that's great. And I appreciate that because I can relate to it for many reasons. Very similar to yourself.
Mm,
Being in the corporate world, I didn't feel aligned because I felt like, yeah, I was doing great work, but I didn't feel like I was making an impact in people's lives. And I think as I got older, that was something that was more important for me. So I do want to come back to the whole idea around mind body connection, as you've touched on it a few times. But I do want to come back to your early, like, in terms of your journey there earlier, you talked about managing depression, and a lot of people tend to do that. What does that mean to you?
mm.
Because there's either you accept it and you just say depression's a part of my life and I'll manage it. At least that's my interpretation of it. Or you build practices in your life where you know you can mitigate getting into those depressive cycles. And that's something I've had to do is recognize what were some of the choices I was making that would lead me down that depressive path, and how can I navigate those choices and be more aware of and just be more intentional around what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis so my mind isn't even going there.
Yeah. So my idea of managing depression means just trying to maybe even just change your thoughts. Oh, every time I'm depressed, I'm just going to
Mhm.
try to be positive.
Mhm.
Or staying busy and distracted. I'm just going to hang out with friends or force myself to do things that bring me joy, spend more time working so I don't really feel what I'm feeling, drink more, have more sex, like anything
Yeah.
someone is doing to just not feel what they're feeling. I would call that managing.
Mhm.
I also would say, like, changing your thoughts, I'd say that still is managing. Like,
Mhm.
you didn't actually clear the energy from your body that you don't have thoughts like that anymore, and you don't even have to change them when you clear the energy.
Mhm.
And what I mean by that is, like, emotions are just energy. So let's say I'm carrying fear, that means I'm gonna have fearful thoughts. And if I'm
Mhm.
carrying shame, I'm gonna have shameful thoughts. I'm gonna be judging myself all the time and judging other people. And if you're not carrying shame, you don't have those thoughts.
Mhm.
So instead of just trying to change my thoughts, oh, I should love myself. I should value myself. I shouldn't be hard on myself. That I would consider managing, because if I just cleared the shame from my body, then I would never need to continuously
Mhm.
try to do that. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So you also mentioned the social anxiety piece. And first of all, I'm curious to understand, how did you become more aware of the fact that it was an issue? And then the other piece is, then how do you try to manage both depression and social anxiety? Because I feel if you're trying to work through one and if the other is getting triggered, then that could also be a bit of a challenge, right?
Great question. So how I became aware of it was I had a group of friends. It was like me and 2 other people,
Mhm.
and long story short, one person left the group and it was just me and this other person, and then I
Mhm.
realized when we're just, like, going for dinner together, I am so uncomfortable. Like,
Mm.
I can't just sit there and have a conversation. I was only comfortable if we were maybe just, like, chilling at their house, watching TV, like, doing an activity, but if I was just one-on-one with someone, like, all I knew was I'm uncomfortable. I wouldn't have been able to name it social anxiety.
Mhm.
I just know I'm uncomfortable, and at that time, all I knew was I don't wanna feel uncomfortable. So then I would cancel plans with someone I cared so much about, or my best friend, but I just didn't wanna feel that way, and I didn't know what else to do other than, "Let's cancel the plans and reschedule till we can do, like, an activity together." And then they took that very personally because they didn't understand what I was going through. They think I don't wanna hang out with them,
Mhm.
and then stop being friends, and I realized, like, that just kept happening, and that's when I realized, "Okay, I seem to not be comfortable one-on-one with someone, and that's how
Mhm.
I like figured it out.
Mhm.
Also in big groups too, like I had it that way too. Like I just would get really small in a big group. So it was both one-on-one or a big group. There was only certain situations where I was comfortable. Like it had to be a controlled, like the way I want it, and then I'm comfortable. So that's how I realized it. And to answer your question, like about anxiety and depression at the same time, to be 100% honest, I healed anxiety without trying to heal anxiety. I just tried to heal from depression.
Mhm.
And then the anxiety naturally healed because I was doing the same thing. I do the same thing to heal everything in my body. It doesn't matter if it's a physical illness, a mental illness, or just a problem in my life. I
Mhm.
actually go about them all the same way, which is I welcome what I'm feeling. And anxiety is just fear, and depression is stuck emotions. Like it could be despair, it could be hopelessness, it could be shame, it could be a lot of things.
Right.
So it is the same thing. They're all just like stuck emotions in your body. And it's just they're different emotions. Anxiety is fear, depression is something else. So when I was just healing or welcoming all the emotions that I was carrying, because that's what happened when I found Mind Body Medicine. I was like, oh, okay, I need to stop suppressing what I'm feeling and welcoming it. So then I would just welcome every single trigger that I felt, and that included fear. And so the anxiety just went away because I was also welcoming fear. I healed anxiety naturally, essentially, while
Mhm.
healing from depression.
Yeah.
That's essentially what I was saying.
Yeah.
So it's not really meant to be complicated to heal. Your
Mhm.
body your body's trying to bring up what needs to be healed. It's trying to bring up anything that doesn't align with your natural state.
Mhm.
I consider your natural state joy, peace, and love.
Mhm.
And the reason that I say that is because that's what's underneath the other emotions. Like when I'm feeling fear, for example, and then I dissolve that fear, then I feel peace.
Mhm.
I didn't have to force myself to feel peace. I literally just felt peace when I was no longer scared.
Mhm.
And it's the same thing with if you dissolve shame, you just feel more love after, more love for yourself and other people when you're not shaming yourself and judging other people. You just feel more love.
Right.
So I just say that these other emotions are not aligned with you fear, shame, guilt, apathy, fear. So they're just coming up to come out.
Mhm.
That's why they're coming up. And it's not
Right.
meant to be complicated. Your body already knows how to release emotions. It's just when you contract and you don't want to feel them and then you resist,
Mhm.
that they stay in place. And that's essentially what depression is
Mhm.
stuck emotions. I really don't want to feel this and I'm going to suppress it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So what I'm hearing from you is because people get stuck in what I like to refer to them as lower energy states, but
Mhm.
essentially when you're stuck in there, that's where you're not really experiencing your natural state, as you've touched on the love, peace, and joy. Now, you've talked about, is it mind body medicine? Is that,
Yeah.
yeah, okay. So, what is that about? And what are you essentially doing when you're using that practice? What makes it different and what does it consist of?
Yeah. So, mind body medicine is essentially saying your mind and body are connected. So, that means your thoughts and emotions are affecting your health and really everything in your reality. So, it's essentially saying your inner state is affecting everything your health, the problems in your life, everything you're seeing in your reality. Your consciousness is creating your reality. That's what mind body medicine is saying.
Mm,
So, mind body medicine is all about shifting your inner state, dissolving these energies and emotions, which then shifts your thoughts because now you no longer have those thoughts.
mhm,
That would be considered shifting your consciousness. And so, as long as you come into a higher consciousness than where the problem was created, then the solution now exists or the problem just goes away.
mhm,
So I have found it to be one of the fastest ways to heal because if you're not in the same state where the problem can exist, then the problem has to go away. There's no way that it won't. You'd have to be in so much resistance for you not to heal.
mhm.
Like truly, if you're not healing, you're in resistance somehow and you're just not aware how you're in
Right.
resistance.
Yeah.
That's what I do in my sessions. I'm really sensitive and intuitive, and I can tell how someone's in resistance. What is it that you're doing that's having this stay in your body? Because it is pretty unique to each person, the way they're going about resisting.
Mhm,
And I usually feel what that is talking to someone within half an hour. People will actually say it. If you're like deeply listening, you're asking questions, they will say it. And then I'll feel this feeling in my body. Oh, that's what it is. And then we'll use mind body tools to clear the resistance. And when you clear the resistance, your body already knows how to heal. and then they heal.
Okay.
Yeah.
And again, just to explore that further, when you're talking about people resisting it, I'm assuming, and again, I see this a lot of times too, it's manifesting as different things. Sometimes it could be relationship problems, sometimes it can be chronic pain, stress, other forms of illnesses. So, yeah, there's different ways that resistance can manifest, and people don't always connect the dots. So, I'm guessing that's part of your role too, is to help them tie it back to what is it in your life that you're resisting and how would it help to have that level of acceptance.
Yes, especially because these things aren't separate. If
Mhm.
you're having illness and you're having issues in your relationship, there's probably the same energy under both, or maybe there's one or two different energies, but it's affecting everything. So that's why people that resonate with this work are people that are like asking for massive change in their life. And it's not people that are like, I just want like a quick fix and I just want to feel better, but I don't want anything to change in my life. Like, I don't want my job to change. I don't want my relationship to change. But it's the truth is that everything that changes or everything that you quote lose was something that was never aligned with you in the first place.
Mhm.
If you lose your job, that's not your sole purpose. It really wasn't something you're truly passionate about. You may think that it was, but there's something better in store. If your relationship fades out, it also means there's someone else
Mhm.
that you could have more of a conscious relationship with. So I know it's terrifying if you've been like married for 30 years or something and you're like, no, no, I don't want to even consider leaving my partner. That's not something we're even going to touch. We're only going to talk about my physical health.
Yeah.
It's going to change anyways. When you shift your consciousness, like you can't be living in unconditional joy and then be abandoning yourself in your relationship and your
Mhm.
job. It doesn't match. Yeah.
Yeah.
So everything changes.
But there's a level of faith required that by walking away from a relationship or a job, that there might be something better around the corner because now you're removing yourself from whatever's keeping you down, I guess, if we're talking
Yeah.
up and down.
I would never ask someone to do something they're not ready for. So
Right.
if they're scared, then we're going to welcome the fear first.
Yes.
So that's essentially how it happened for me. I didn't leave my job until I had welcomed so much fear that I was like, I'm not scared to quit. There was this knowing in me, I'm going to be taken care of. And that was not there when I was carrying fear. I was not ready to leave at all. The thought of leaving terrified me. I was like, what if there's nothing I'm good at and nothing I'm meant to do and I
Mhm.
run out of my savings and I don't figure it out?
Yeah.
I just kept welcoming the fear and then one day I was ready. So we do you don't have to force yourself or push yourself, but just the thought of leaving the relationship or the thought of leaving the job is going to bring up the fear.
Mhm.
And then if you welcome that and you do that every day, 5 minutes a day, there's going to be a point where you naturally trust and you don't have to force yourself to have faith.
Mhm.
You're just going to have a knowing I'm taken care of when
Mhm.
there's no fear.
Yeah. So again, it's important to highlight that you have be prepared to the point where you're ready, right? You may not want to force it, but take your time. Now, there's an aspect of consciousness you've talked about. So, from your perspective, for someone that's listening and they don't understand what does she mean by consciousness and like how do you raise your consciousness? Are you able to help us understand what you mean from that perspective?
Yeah. Yes. So if anyone's confused by this, something that's really helpful is to Google the human scale of consciousness. I don't know if anyone on here hasn't seen the human scale of consciousness before, but if you Google it, it's essentially a scale of emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And the lowest one is shame.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think it goes like guilt, apathy, fear, anger,
Yeah.
acceptance, courage, love, joy, peace kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's probably not the exact order, but so essentially how you raise your consciousness or first of all what your consciousness is that inner state. What
Mm-hmm.
emotions are you carrying? What thoughts are you carrying? That's your consciousness. That's what I would describe it as.
Mm-hmm.
You could also think of it as like the observer,
Mm-hmm.
right? So like the fact that I can observe my body means I am not my body. I'm the one observing my body. I'm the consciousness in this body. Without it, like I wouldn't have any awareness of
Mm-hmm.
what's going on. So that's another way to think of consciousness. But yeah, I would call it your inner state. So what emotions are you feeling? What thoughts are you having?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Shameful thoughts, fearful thoughts, hopeless thoughts, things like that. So, how do you raise your consciousness? Like I was saying earlier, your natural state is love, joy, and peace. And that's 500 and above on the
Mhm.
logarithmic scale, on the human scale of consciousness. So, when you welcome the lower density emotions you're
Mhm.
carrying, since your body is a transmuter and already knows how to dissolve energy, that will happen naturally. And then you immediately jump up on the human scale of consciousness. Because I was saying, when you're not feeling fear, you feel peace.
Mhm.
When you're not feeling shame, you feel love. So it's like a quantum jump. It's not, oh, I just moved a little bit up on the
Mhm.
scale. No, it's a logarithmic scale. It's an exponential curve. So it's not linear. It's not, okay, I dissolved a little bit of despair today and I feel a little bit more joy. You're going to find when you get to that like inflection point that it's not just you feel a little bit of joy, you feel unconditional joy that like can't be taken away.
Mhm.
So, how you raise your consciousness is essentially through surrender and welcoming and accepting what you're currently feeling instead of resisting. It is meant to be natural for you to live in love, joy, and peace.
Mhm. Yeah, and I would also add, and o obviously open to your thoughts here, but there's a level of curiosity too, right? So when you're talking about the lower density states, I think there's envy in there too. So especially if you're experiencing envy, anger, apathy, getting curious around, okay, why am I feeling these things? And how can I navigate through it? So there's an aspect of that too. And then to your point, there's that acceptance and surrender and letting things come in. But it is a bit of it does take a lot of effort. And I think for people, like you said, you you experience this complete shift as you start experiencing these normal states. Now, as an engineer, has it helped you understand this a little bit better? Because you're obviously talking about a lot of mathematical terms and stuff like that too.
Yeah, when I first found this work, I will say I think part of the reason I was so open to it was because it didn't seem super woo woo and out of the box. Although I would have been willing to try literally anything at that
Mhm.
point, and I already had tried other unconventional things that kind of were a little out of the box and woo woo. And so I think understanding the science behind it did help. But I do also tell people that because reason is right below love on the human scale of consciousness, reason operates at 400, love operates at 500. If you need to understand something before you let it in, you will actually stay at the consciousness of reason.
Mhm.
Apparently, Einstein operated at 499.
Mm.
He never operated at love or above for whatever reason. I don't know if he allowed love in. I think he, from what I was aware, he didn't have a lot of close relationships with his family and stuff like that. Like it was all about reason and intellect. So he was really high on the human scale of consciousness, but he was not living in love.
Mm.
So what was my point in saying that? I can't remember now.
I
What was your
think just
question again?
I think if I interpret it correctly, if you remain stuck on trying to understand it, you may not rise or I guess make those shifts into love, peace, and joy. Yeah.
Exactly. And think about it. If you just started giving yourself compassion today, love today, like, I'm so sorry you're hurting. I'm so sorry you've been having this experience. Those emotions would start dissolving right away.
Hmm.
You would heal without ever having to understand anything. You can skip reason. Yeah, it can be helpful to have people be open to understanding the science behind self healing and mind body medicine, but you don't need it.
Mm.
People can heal without it. You do not have to be, quote, smart. You do not have to spend a lot of time learning anything. You don't actually have to spend any time learning anything. If you truly surrendered, it's actually about less efforting because, again, your body knows how to do this.
Mm-hmm.
If you even the first time you had this experience or this trauma, if all you did was soften instead of contract, you could have healed that right then and there without ever understanding anything and without any effort. It's just that it's already stuck in the body. It's, oh, what do I do now? It's the same thing. The energy is still here in the now, and you can soften now when you feel it because life will trigger you and bring it up. If it's still in your system somewhere in your body, life is going to bring it up.
Mm.
So as long as you're willing, okay, when I am triggered, I will soften. It's just like a reminder instead of contract, I'm going to soften. And then you are going to feel it more fully when you soften, but it's temporary and it will move right through. So
Mm-hmm.
there's no threat in feeling something that's already in your body.
Mm-hmm. So when you say soften, if I understand correctly, what you mean is let yourself feel the feelings, or I know that sounds cliche, but at the end of the day, it's being able to experience it all and not resist it as you were referring to earlier. Now, the other thing you touched on, and again, I want to understand better, is this quantum shift that one experience. So is that more of a metaphysical experience as opposed to a physical one?
So there would be a physical shift right away. So our body is electromagnetic
Mm-hmm.
and you can detect it 8 to 10 feet outside your body, but it spreads out infinitely beyond that. This electromagnetic field that
Mm-hmm.
looks like a torus field, for if anyone that Googles it, the strongest electromagnetic field comes from your heart
Mm-hmm.
and then second from your head. If you Google it, you'll see like it pretty much comes from your heart and radiates out. So you could actually measure right away, like there's devices like then the second you dissolve a certain emotion, you're in a higher vibration,
Mm-hmm.
a higher consciousness. I'm going to use vibration and consciousness because a lot of people use the word frequency, but
Mm-hmm.
it's actually not true. You would have a lower frequency and a higher vibration. A lot of people say higher frequency. No, it's actually a lower frequency. Like when you come into a state of heart brain coherence, it's zero point 0.1 hertz.
Mm-hmm.
And the Schumann frequency of the planet apparently was zero point 0.1 hertz for the longest time. Apparently it's 7 or 8 right now or something, but it's like a super low number.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to be in harmony with the planet, if you want to be in coherence, that's actually a low frequency and a high vibration, high consciousness.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So when you meet individuals, and I'm sure a lot of people have experienced this, myself included, where you see a grounded individual or they just seem to exude this energy, I suppose, where you're like, oh, I like this person's vibration, I suppose. So that's essentially what's really happening is they are in that state where they are putting something out there, and that's where perhaps we are being attracted to. Or conversely, if we're in a lower density, then it may not be something that we would find appealing. We would actually be more deterred being in that field. And you can argue that, right, both ways. So I wonder if that's what's
Yes.
really happening.
Yeah, so your body has 3 functions to it. You're a transmitter, so you're emitting a vibration at all times,
Mm-hmm.
and you're a receptor, which means you can feel other people's vibration,
Mm-hmm.
exactly what you're saying. You can be around someone and you can tell they're upset or they're, like, super heavy to be
Mm-hmm.
around 'cause they're carrying all these dense energies and emotions. And then thirdly, you're a transmuter, like I was saying earlier. Your
Mm-hmm.
body knows how to transmute and dissolve energy. Those are the 3 functions of your energy body. So, yeah, you're right. You would be able to feel like be around someone like, "Oh, I love your presence," or "Wow, you're super heavy to be around." But I will say the people that show up in your reality are a reflection of you.
Yes.
So, it's not just, "Oh, I'm gonna reject you as you're super heavy." It's okay, if they're showing up in your reality a lot, you might be carrying the same energies as them.
Mm-hmm.
Or you're being invited to have compassion for even that,
Mm-hmm.
that you think, "No way, I could never have compassion for that. That's
Mm-hmm.
wrong. That's bad." But if it's in your reality, you are creating it somehow.
Mm-hmm.
So you're like rejecting yourself
Right.
by judging that person.
Yeah. And there could be an aspect of your own healing that needs to happen by inviting that person into your reality.
And you don't have to like necessarily spend a lot of time with someone that's triggering you, but just bring awareness to how it makes you feel anytime you happen to be around them instead of just being like, oh, they're a negative person.
Mm-hmm.
It's if it's triggering you, there's something in you to heal as well.
Right. Right. And when you speak of reality, do you feel that based on the states you choose to be in or you work towards can change your reality also?
Yeah, 100%. Your consciousness creates your reality, your beliefs create your reality. So yeah, essentially like what you choose. Um I will say let's say I want to choose to believe something.
Mm-hmm.
That might not be enough. I would literally have to change that belief. Like I could say affirmations all day long, but if I truly believe I'm not worthy of receiving love, like that's what I'm going to see. I could try to choose that I'm worthy every day and try to see something different in my reality, but the truth is I won't if I truly believe I'm not worthy. Like that belief has to change.
Yeah.
And there are ways you can change that really quickly. There's other modalities I use too, like
Mm-hmm.
theta healing. You can clear beliefs so quickly, like 30 seconds to a minute. And it's super quick and easy. And the client doesn't even need to know how to be in a theta brainwave state. Like it's not slow like hypnosis, it's like way faster than that. So yeah, once you clear those beliefs, 100% what in your reality will be different.
Hmm. So what I'm hearing from you is it's not just a matter of telling yourself that this is who you want to be, it's actually living it. And by living it, you're actually in those higher states of being where then you start creating situations that align with those states. And that could be
Mhm.
inviting people into your reality or just typical outcomes. They're all aligned as opposed to, you being in a different state and then again, situations aligning with those states. So people have to
Yeah.
make that conscious effort in terms of being in those states.
Yeah, once you make that conscious choice, like I do want to have love in my life, for example, and I want to like feel worthy. Now everything that doesn't align with that is going to come up because now you've made this conscious choice. So any shame you're carrying, unworthiness, it's all going to come up. Life's on your side, especially when you make that choice. It's happening anyways because life's on your side, but it's like the second you make the choice, your body's okay. She's ready. He's ready. She can clear all these things now. She's asking for this now. Let's bring this up now.
Hmm. Okay. And how does the theta wave then play into this? Are you able to shed some light on that as well?
So most people are aware that the first 7 years of their life, they were in like a theta brainwave state for a lot of that time, or alpha, like a slower brainwave state where they were very receptive. So when you're in that state, that's where you learn the most, you get the most programming. You also got programming before that, passed down from your ancestors, things like that. There's apparently 4 different belief levels that we hold beliefs on. There's like core, soul, history, genetic, or the 4 different levels. When you get into a theta brainwave state, it's almost like you're going back to being 7 years old, and you're super receptive, and we can give you new programming very easily. And theta healing, especially like the way you get into a theta brainwave state, it's actually by connecting with like creator consciousness. So you can call that whatever you want to call it, like God, or like wherever you believe everything is created from.
Mhm.
That's the energy we connect with. And when you're in that energy, you automatically go into a theta brainwave state.
Mm.
So you literally don't need to know how, you don't need to be hypnotized. Immediately, your brain waves are slower. And that's when we can reprogram your subconscious mind easily, pull beliefs, replace them with new programming, because you're going to need new programming. If we just pull beliefs, now you're like, what's my operating system? How do I live my life now? You do need like a set of programs and a set of beliefs.
And is
Yeah.
that something one can achieve on their own? Could they enter this? Okay, so how does one do that then?
Yeah, so you 100% could do it on your own. If you read the book Theta Healing by Vienna Steibel, you could learn how to do this on your own. You could also just work with a
Mhm.
healer. You could go to their website, find one in your area. They're amazing. But to do it on your own, there's a little meditation that they teach you in the book. That's like how you connect with the seventh plane of existence, is what they call it. So I know this might sound super out of the box, but they're essentially saying there's 7 planes of existence. The first plane is like non-organic matter, the second is organic matter, the third is like humans, the fourth is like where your soul would go when
Mhm.
you'd pass away. The fifth would be if you're like a master soul, you would go to the fifth plane.
Mhm.
The sixth plane is all the laws. So, like law of gravity, law of magnetism, law of compassion, things like that.
Mhm.
And the seventh plane is where everything is created from,
Mhm.
including all the other planes. That's what it shares about in that book. So, it teaches you how to get into the seventh plane. It's like essentially pulling Mother Earth energy up from the bottom of the earth through your feet, through all your energy centers, and then you see this ball of light above the top of your head that you're in it. You see it going through all the layers of the universe, through all the laws in the sixth plane, and then you enter the seventh plane. That's one way to do it. They teach you actually 2 different types of meditations. So you can get there in 30 seconds. And honestly, it's enough to just intend, I want to connect with creator consciousness and creator energy, because I'm not a visual person.
Mhm.
And when I've done this, I've taken so many courses. I'm in the seventh plane before I even do what I just said to you. Like it just, as soon as I try to connect, I'm already there. Because you are meant to always be supported. You're not separate from creation energy. You were created from it.
Mhm.
So it's not actually meant to be hard to connect with it. You're actually always connected with it. It's about
Mhm.
consciously connecting with it.
Mhm.
So I know this sounds like really out of the box, but like I love sharing about theta healing because It is one of the fastest forms of healing I've ever found because you're connecting with creation energy where everything is created from. There is really nothing more powerful than connecting with that. So
Hmm.
I really recommend that people read that book and either learn how to do this for themselves or like work with a theta healing practitioner if that resonates with you. Like I've seen miracles for myself and my clients working with stuff like that that doctors said that I could never heal. Physical things, mental things, lots of things.
Fair enough. No, and I appreciate that. So I know we've talked about quite a bit here. So
Mhm.
I guess for the listeners, what are some practical steps they can take? So I know you talked about theta healing, but outside of that, we've talked about shifts and beliefs. But what are some practical things people can do and implement in their life?
Yeah. So my go-to tool that I use every time I'm triggered, and this literally is the thing that helped me heal from depression, my mentor calls it the instant elevation tool. It's just 3 steps. It's awareness, breath, conscious choice. Awareness is the most important part out of all of that. My mentor always used to tell me, if all I do is get someone to be more aware of what they're feeling, they will heal. Because right now they're resisting what they're feeling or they're not aware of what they're feeling. And then that's why it turns into an illness and gets louder. So you can just get them to be more aware of it, they're not resisting it and then their body can move it. So it's so important. So there's lots of different ways you can bring awareness to what you're feeling. You can just bring awareness to where you feel it in your body. Because when you're triggered, there is somewhere in your body you feel it. Otherwise, you wouldn't be triggered. You would feel great.
Mhm.
So bring awareness to where you feel it. You could rate it on a scale of 1 to 10. You could be like, okay, am I just feeling like contracted right now or expanded right now? Does this have like density or does it feel light and fluffy? Does it have like a texture? And the answer to this question like means absolutely nothing. It's just a way to bring more awareness to what you're feeling. Cuz as I'm trying to rate how I'm feeling on a scale of 1 to 10, that was 10 seconds right there that I was not resisting my pain because I was just with curiosity, oh, what is there? What am I noticing?
Mhm.
So now I'm not resisting. Now I've been doing it for so long I don't have to ask myself those questions. It's just, okay, where do I feel it in my body? And I just bring awareness to where I feel it. So that's the first step,
Mhm.
awareness. Second step is breath. So it is super important to breathe all the way down to your belly to activate your parasympathetic nervous system state. That's your rest and digest state. If you're breathing shallow in your chest, then you're in your fight or flight response. So
Mhm.
now your body doesn't have the energy to heal itself because it's putting energy into other things,
Right.
excreting like stress hormones and things like that, right? So it's very important, even if you just soften your shoulders, the breath will naturally come more down to your belly. Even if you just imagine like a red balloon in your belly inflating with the inhale, deflating with the exhale, like your body will eventually match that because your body doesn't know the difference between the real and the imagined.
Mhm.
So it's very important to slow down your breathing.
Mhm.
And then part is conscious choice. Conscious choice is I'm going to choose to relax my body. I'm going to choose to feel peace. It's like an affirmation. It's what most people do. Most people only do part C. They'll try to shift their thoughts. They'll have higher picture awareness. Okay, there isn't really a threat here. There's nothing to be scared about. I choose to relax my body,
Yeah.
or I choose to know I'm worthy, or something like that.
Mhm.
That would be part C. Part C is actually the least important part of the equation because your natural state is love, joy, peace. So that's already going to be there when you do A and B. When you welcome what you feel and it dissolves, you're already going to feel lighter. So you don't necessarily have to make a lighter choice, but that would just expand it
Mhm.
exponentially. Choose to feel more peace.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess in the breathing part, especially if you're living in fear, if you have anxiety, then obviously your breathing is going to be shallow. And a good antidote to that is focusing on your breathing, especially if you're experiencing anxiety, because that can really help. And, I've seen people who experience panic attacks, their breathing is just super shallow, right? So they're
Yeah.
not in the parasympathetic, they're just fight or flight and having
Yes.
all this fear come in.
Yeah. It's so important, and I have heard people say to me and come to me before that they've tried, like, different forms of therapy and stuff like that, and their therapists keep telling them how important breathing is, and they're like, "I'm not noticing any shifts." And I'm like, guaranteed the reason you're not healing is because you're doing the breathing to make your pain go away.
Mm,
You're like, okay, fine, I'll focus on my breathing, but only because I want this to go away. It's like you're not truly welcoming what you're feeling. You're still resisting what you're feeling, and that's why it's not going anywhere.
mhm.
So the breath is still so important, even if you haven't seen results from doing breath work so far, guys. I swear to you, it is like it's very necessary for you to be relaxed and in your parasympathetic state for this energy to move.
Yeah, no, I for sure I appreciate that. No, this has been a great conversation, Alicia. Very enlightening and informative. Now, for listeners that want to learn more from you or reach out to you, what are some ways they can do that?
Yeah, you could find me on my website at alishakapani.com. You could sign up for my email list on there, or you could follow me on Instagram at Alicia_Kapani. That's where I hang out the most. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll put that in the show notes so listeners can find that. But thank you again. I know we covered a lot of ground. Do you feel like there's anything else we should mention before we bring this to an end that would be of value to the listeners?
If anyone like does want to understand more of the science behind self-healing, the fact that your consciousness is creating your reality, things like that, just cuz like you and me are both very analytical, so I'm assuming maybe you attract those kind of people. But I did write a book, Quantum Physics for Beginners Simplified, that does like a really good job of explaining how your consciousness creates your reality. I actually have it here. But yeah, you could pick it up on Amazon if you wanted to learn more about it, if that resonates with you, if that makes you more open. But either way, you have this infinite power within you. You already are creating all the time. It's just if you want to learn how to consciously create something different, then it would be really helpful to know how your consciousness is creating your reality. So, yeah, you could pick that up.
Awesome. We'll put that in the show notes too. But thank you again. Really appreciate you coming on and having this conversation with me today.
Thanks for having me. This was fun.